Hey guys, so in this video I want to talk about Ezio's crit tag and how his damage can be calculated, because if I were to recommend what is the best Psychube and also his resonance patterns, then I would at least need to be able to calculate his damage. And just for your information, I did upgrade his Psychube to maximum, and then I also go for genuinity, which is for incantation might. In the community right now, a lot is suggesting aspirational. I do understand why they suggested that, because it's more well-rounded, but in an certain situation it actually does more damage than genuinity. But let us look into the damage calculation. Okay, before that, I want to talk about his crit tag. So here you see his crit tag is 1106, based on his base critical rate and critical damage. So whatever bonus that you get is not accounted for. So again here 1106, and I have a Psychube attack percentage. If I change it to audio coda, which is also 380, but it has crit rate. So let me equip this. You see over here, his crit rate is still the same, 1106, but the bonus crit rate increases because of the Psychube. And we can see that the Psychube actually doesn't impact the crit rate. And resonance as well, if I remove all his resonance, okay, the attack is reduced, crit rate no more bonus, but crit tag is still the same. Alright? Okay, and I want to show you lastly now if I enter a battle. The reason why I do that, because his A2 over here, oh, where is it? No. There. The Insight 2 crit damage 15% when entering battle, but again we can see the crit tag is not affected. Alright. Here are some of the boss's crit tag. As you can see, this is the boss for 400 meter far. It has a crit tag of 322. So if we minus off this with Ezio's 1100, it's a difference of about 784. And if you round it up to the nearest 100, then is 7. So 7 times 11, why 11? Assuming that Ezio is in Master Assassin buff, he get up to 11% damage. Final damage dealt. This is for 400 meter dash 3, it has 290. So that would give me multiplier of 8. So I get up to 88% final damage dealt. And this one, 400 meter dash 2, is even lower, only 191, so that gave a multiplier of 9 and can grant Ezio up to 99% final damage dealt. For 400 meter dash 1, sorry for the typo, is 400 meter dash 1 is also multiplier of 8, 88% final damage dealt. So basically most of the boss is within that range, so you will have at least about 7 multiplier. So with all this information, I can start the calculation, but before that, I want to show you a short clips. Alright, so when I was adjusting the calculation, what I did was I actually came to this fight, and here I demonstrate to you, alright, 14,372 damage. So when I did the calculation and I took the stats of the boss, which I will show you in a moment, and then I put in Ezio's stats, and then I calculated the final damage dealt, I was able to get 14,000. So here I'm going to explain to you how Ezio's damage is being calculated. So this is the damage calculator. So I have all of Ezio's stats being placed in this column, and then the enemy stats as well. So relative defense 630, as you can see from the picture below. So I added it in 630. Damage reduction 11.8, but Reverie has 20% if I'm not hitting a Flatus bonus, so 32%. Crit defense 39%. Damage multiplier, S1, Ezio is 400%, which is crazily high. So I put it in, and then I calculate the damage. So if he crits, it's going to be 9,411, but because of the final damage dealt, it got increased to 14,000. And as you can see just now, when I demonstrate to you when the enemy attacks, it is 14,000. So that's a slight difference in number, but it's pretty accurate. Yeah, so here basically the final damage dealt is actually based on the crit tag. So you can see this enemy crit tag is 243, Ezio's is 1100. So when you minus it, you get about 800. So the multiplier is 8. So 8 times 7%. Why 7%? 5% from assassination, because Ezio has not gone into the Master Assassin buff or status yet. And 2% is from the Psychube. So total 7%, and that gives me 56% final damage dealt. Okay? Yeah. So basically from there, I have for genuinity, I have for aspiration, I also have for elucidation. Then I did the rotation. Okay, what would be expected if you are using follow-up attack, ultimate, and poison? And I will be comparing these three reasoning pattern, aspirational, which is the one everyone unlocked, genuinity, as well as elucidation. Aspiration, this is at R13 for your information. So crit rate 14%, crit damage is up to 28%, while genuinity is 14% crit rate, the same, but critical damage is lower, only at 11%, but it gained additional incantation might, which is good for most of Ezio's attack. Elucidation, instead of incantation might, it provides ultimate might. So if you are going for ultimate mode, this can be one of the patterns to consider for. As for the Psychube, his own Psychube provide the final damage dealt bonus, and every time you do a one target attack and it crits, then you get additional 12% crit damage, can stack up to 3 times. And most of all, his Psychube actually boosts his attack to quite a high number, and actually that made quite a big difference as well. On the other hand, a lot has been recommending Argus. So the reason with Argus is because after you actively cast one target attack, you gain up to 24% incantation might, and as we know, most of Ezio's attack is incantation anyway, so it's going to get a tremendous buff. However, do note that the first attack, which is the S1 that you use to trigger this 24%, will not gain the effect of this 24%, and of course ultimate will not gain this 24% as well. And you lose out quite a bit on the attack stats if you are using Argus Psychube. Now for this one, follow-up attack. So here I have the rotation. So basically every round you want to use S1, and then he will inflict the debuff on the enemy. So when another ally attack, he will do a follow-up attack, and then after that the enemy attacks. So here I assume it is just 2 repos. Sometimes it's way more, sometimes 4, sometimes even more, or sometimes the enemy doesn't even attack at all. So in average, I use the basis of calculation for this is 2 repos per round and 1 ultimate. 1 ultimate here because in the Fuwa mode, he charged actually quite slowly. So assuming that in 4 rounds, you will be able to cast his ultimate once. So total 4 S1 for follow-up attack and 8 repos and 1 ultimate. And here I'm assuming the first 2 rounds without Master Assassin. So you can see I divided the damage calculation into 2 parts. One is assuming that he just have 5% final damage dealt because he's not in the Master Assassin mode. While once he enter Master Assassin, then it goes up to 11%. So based on the multiplier, the relative damage multiplier, and his kit, there's a lot of things that he does. He get additional damage. If you go for the follow-up attack, you get 50% additional damage from your extra action, the follow-up attacks. And also when he counter, he does additional 50% crit damage. So I take that into account as well. Then depending on the secondary weapon, because some actually changes the number of attack he does, and some provide additional boosts. So depending if it does provide that, then I will do extra calculation. But do note that secondary weapon 1, the advantage that he can convert crit to crit damage. So if you bring a party full with characters that provide crits, it will be very good for him. On the other hand, secondary 2, which is more follow-up attack. So when an enemy dies, he will then do a follow-up attack on the enemy with the lower HP. And if that enemy dies, then he attack another one. So the maximum you can do that is 2 times if you are at P0. So naturally, that will deal more damage if you are able to actually trigger it every round. While for the third, it actually extended the counter buffs, so which means you don't have to cast S2 every round. You can cast it every other round, making Ezio more AP friendly. So this is very dependent on your team. If you are bringing a team that is very strict in terms of rotation, then you might want to play Ezio more passively. And to provide a little bit more discussion on the comparison for the damage, as you can see, Genuinity Ezio and Genuinity Argus, in terms of the incantation, naturally Genuinity Argus does more damage, but when it comes to the ultimate, it does less. So I take into account these attacks so that it gives a better reflection. If you're just taking the follow-up attack and calculate, of course Argus will win outright, just way better than the Genuinity Ezio. But when you account the ultimate, then it balancing up a bit. So yeah. And for Aspiration, so Aspiration overall does a little bit lower damage compared to Genuinity, due to 12% of incantation might actually provides more than 17% crit damage. So overall, Genuinity Argus using the first weapon actually provide the best damage output. And here basically I simplify it. So Genuinity Argus has the highest if we are using secondary weapon 1, followed by Aspirational Argus, and then Genuinity Ezio and Aspirational Ezio. But it's a small difference, probably less than 5%. For the secondary weapon, due to that additional follow-up attack that you can do, it seems that Genuinity Ezio is actually better. So followed by Genuinity Argus, then Aspirational Argus, and then Aspirational Ezio. And for weapon 3, again without the additional crit damage conversion, because when you use Argus, his crit will overflow. So secondary weapon 1 provide that additional overflow of 6% crit rate to crit damage. But if you're using the secondary weapon 3, then you are not able to convert it, right? So in that case, Genuinity Ezio is actually better. As for alt mode, it's a no-brainer. Don't use Argus. Argus provide incantation might, not ultimate might. So here I have a comparison: secondary weapon 1, Genuinity Ezio, Aspirational Ezio, and Elucidation Ezio. Surprisingly, Genuinity Ezio does the most damage. That's mainly because most of his entire kit is actually not the ultimate. It's actually all the follow-up attacks and attack that he does. So yeah, it kind of does make sense why Genuinity Ezio will be higher in the damage output than alt mode. Unless you can, because here what I assume is that the rotation is 2 ultimate instead of 1 ultimate every. Right, so you do 1 ultimate every 2 rounds. Instead, for the follow-up attack, is 1 ultimate every 4 rounds. However, if you are actually able to cast ultimate every round, I'm not sure if that is possible. I haven't fully explored the ultimate team. If you can really do that, then Elucidation or Aspirational will be the better choice. And for the secondary weapon, because you have an additional boost of 30% damage dealt on the enemy if there's no minion present. So here again, genuinity and aspiration came very close. The numbers actually very close, right? So for 531k, and then for elucidation is 515k. And for the poison mode, I did not do for different weapon because it's a little bit too hard to count all the poison stacks. So I just calculated for the normal one. And here, genuinity 295k with genesis damage 82k. And then moving on, we have 37 Psychube as well that I calculated for this poison mode, and it seems that the highest damage is with 37 and using aspirational. The reason is because after you hit 20 stacks of poison, is it 10 or 20? I can't really remember, but after you hit a certain amount of poison, you will be able to crit. So crit damage will then worse. For 37 Psychube, it actually provides up to 60% Genesis damage, making 37 5-star Psychube one of the best for Poison Ezio. So overall for my recommendation, Genuity plus Argus is the best for follow-up attack, and that is one of the main things that you want to do with Ezio anyway. But Ezio Psychube is just slightly behind Argus, not that big of a difference. And Ezio Psychube is also better for ultimate, so it's kind of more universal, right? And also, if the additional 2% final damage dealt in the poison mode will then contribute to Genesis damage as well. So kind of like you can use Ezio Psychube for poison too. So in that case, I would actually recommend you to get Ezio Psychube over Argus Psychube because it fits better and being more generic to fit into the multiple kit of Ezio. And for reasoning pattern, I actually suggest to go for genuinity if you're going mainly for full attack, but generally aspirational will work better and generic for all other 3 modes. So I would recommend you to go for aspirational, Ezio Psychube. If you can get 37 5-star Psychube, that will be better. Alright, so thank you very much for watching this video. And that's it. Have a good day and good luck with whatever Psychube or reasoning pattern that you want to get. It's not that big of a difference. Just get whichever you like.